When you're staring at a product page that reads like a tech brochure, it's easy to wonder whether any of those numbers actually translate into something useful for your day-to-day workflow. I've spent the last few weeks setting up the NIMO AI NAS Agentic Computer Mini PC and AI server, and I want to walk you through what it feels like to have that kind of hardware under your desk. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. My goal here isn't to hype the headline specs. It's to give you a realistic sense of whether this machine will actually solve the problems you're facing or whether you'll end up paying for power you'll never use. First off, the biggest hesitation most people have with a device that markets itself as a local AI powerhouse is the fear of over-engineering. You might picture a rack-mount server that needs a dedicated cooling room or a desktop that sits idle because you never actually run AI workloads. The NIMO AI NAS tries to strike a balance. It's compact enough to sit on a bookshelf, yet it packs an AMD Ryzen 7 Pro 8845HS and a slot for an Nvidia RTX 5070 class GPU. In practice, that means you can run a mid-sized language model locally, edit 8K footage, or host a game streaming service without having to rent cloud GPU time. The trade-off is that you have to be comfortable managing a hybrid storage pool that can scale up to 132 terabytes, and you need to know a bit about ZFS if you want to take full advantage of the data protection features. Let's talk about the actual setup process. Out of the box, you get a chassis that resembles a high-end network appliance rather than a typical gaming tower. The front panel has two 10GB ports, a power button, and a small LCD that shows basic health stats. Connecting the power cable, plugging the GPU into the PCIe slot, and installing your first set of NVMe drives takes about 15 minutes if you're familiar with standard PC internals. The real difference shows up when you fire up the NIMO OS. The OS boots into a lightweight Linux distribution pre-configured with Docker support, ZFS management tools, and an AI-focused runtime that can expose models as local APIs. For someone who's used to spinning up a VM on a cloud provider, this feels surprisingly approachable. You're essentially getting a private cloud on a single box. Now, who actually benefits from this configuration? If you're a content creator who routinely works with 4K or 8K video, the combination of a professional-grade GPU and DDR5 memory means render times drop dramatically compared to a standard consumer laptop. The storage subsystem, when set up as a hybrid ZFS pool, gives you both speed and redundancy. You can keep hot project files on fast NVMe drives while archiving older footage on larger SATA SSDs without sacrificing data integrity. For indie game developers, the dual 10GB ports let you create a local multiplayer test network that rivals a small office LAN, and the built-in Virtualization Hub means you can spin up isolated test environments for different game builds without needing a separate hypervisor host. If you're looking at this from a pure gaming perspective, the picture changes a bit. The RTX 5070 class card is capable of handling modern titles at high settings, but the real advantage is the ability to run AI-enhanced features locally. Think upscaled textures with DLS-style algorithms, or real-time voice modulation for streaming. However, if you're content with a typical gaming PC that sits under a $2,000 budget and you don't plan to run large language models or maintain a private cloud, the extra cost of the NIMO AI NAS may not justify the marginal gains. In other words, a gamer who just wants a solid frame rate for Call of Duty might find the machine overkill. One of the practical strengths of this system is its power efficiency. The Ryzen 7 Pro 8845HS is a mobile-class CPU, which means it draws less wattage than a comparable desktop processor. Pair that with an efficient cooling solution, a large, low-noise fan that adjusts speed based on workload, and you end up with a machine that can run 24/7 without spiking your electric bill. I ran a continuous AI inference workload for 12 hours, and the power draw hovered around 150 W, which is comparable to a mid-range desktop and far lower than a typical server rack. That low power envelope also translates to quieter operation. The fan only becomes audible when you push the GPU hard during a stress test, and even then it stays in the background. On the flip side, the compact chassis means you're limited in terms of future upgrades. Adding a second GPU isn't possible without moving to a larger case, and the internal layout can make cable management a bit cramped. If you're the type who likes to keep swapping out storage drives or testing different GPU configurations, you'll need to plan ahead and accept that the next upgrade may require a new chassis altogether. Another subtle weakness is the learning curve around ZFS. While the OS provides a graphical interface for basic pool creation, taking